I want to start tonight's message by just saying this. With all that has occurred in our lives personally, and some of you know what I'm talking about, I've noticed that I have fallen back into a pattern, an old habit, if you will, that I don't like, and I happen to do this more often than I like, if I'm truly honest. But my attitude just hadn't been the best lately. And there's just no other way to say it. There isn't. There have been times that I've been critical and maybe cynical. I don't know. But I've been extremely uptight. And if you know me, I'm wired a little tight anyway. I'm not wired as tight as I used to be. And I think that just comes with age. But I know this is true. All of us, if we're honest, we let stress get the best of us sometimes, don't we? We do. And what I need to do and what I want to encourage all of you to do is this, is to learn to relax. Learn to relax. Yeah, some of you are laughing, and I get it. I do. You and I both, though, we have to learn to relax more often. We've got to let go. All right, we've got to lighten up. We've got to lighten up. Why? Because, well, a lot of our stress is self-imposed. It just is. And the result is that it affects our attitude. All right, attitude's important. And Jesus has a lot to say about attitude. Across the New Testament, there are between 60 and 70 verses that teach us that attitude explicitly shapes our perspective in life. In other words, your attitude serves as a filter that determines your perspective, how you view things. All right? If you use the idiom half full or half empty, you know, y'all know what I'm talking about. The glass is either half full or it's half empty, all right? Both represent the same reality, but the distinction rests entirely on how you interpret the facts of the situation that you're in, all right? While perspective is the angle that you view a situation, your attitude, which is your underlying thoughts, your feelings, emotions, and even what you believe, dictates whether you interpret things that happen to you as insurmountable threats or opportunities for growth. All right, the relationship between attitude and perception, they're circular, if you will, and even your thoughts. I'll throw your thoughts in there too. That just means they're highly connected, and both or all three of those things continuously influence and shape one another in our lives. The impact on our reality is this. Ultimately, all those things determine your actions and your overall direction in your life. Now, our problem is this, okay? We bend to the pressures of life. We just do. We get pushed around and we get shoved around in life by things that just aren't important. The unimportant, if you will. We get trapped in the tyranny of the urgent. You know what that is? That's when, you know, you're pushed by pressures in life to do things that maybe sometimes you don't want to do that really aren't that important. All right? So, because of that, we set unrealistic expectations. We place too much emphasis on things, our job even. We even place God-sized expectations on our relationships. I mean, when this relationship isn't right, it affects these relationships. And this is how. We say, hey, my kids, my husband, my wife, my job, they're my everything. And the problem with that is this, is that the result is the unhealthy type of stress. All right, and that creates anxiety. There's a healthy type of stress that causes us to get things done But when it's unhealthy, it causes anxiety in our lives. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Proverbs 12:25 says this: anxiety weighs down the heart. Now, many of you heard that, you're working yourself to death. Did you know that more people die from worry than from work? They do. It's because probably more people worry than work. I don't know. But seriously, I know this, and this may be a shock to you. There's more to life than working. There's more to life than going to the job. There's more to life than the things that we involve ourselves with. So here's an honest question for you, all right? What is it that's so important in your life that everything else gets shoved to the side? Everything. And you know what I'm talking about. If you remember a few weeks back, I said we get involved in so much stuff that the important things get shoved to the side. What is so important in your life that everything else gets shoved to the side? God intends for you to enjoy life, not merely endure it. And we get so busy making a living that we don't have time to make a life. We just don't. The solution is that we all need to lighten up. We need to lighten up our attitude. Honestly, okay? Now, I'm going to give you several attitude boosters today, but I want to start with this one. This is the first one, and it's at the top of your outline. It's humor. Humor. All right? Humor's a great stress reliever. It is. Funny girl, I need to get you up here. I'm just saying, Heather. But humor, here's the problem with humor. It never solves any problems, which is why I didn't include it in the others. But it does give you a new perspective. It does. It gives you a shift in attitude. It helps you to handle things in life, and it helps shift your attitude. Too often, we're so busy that we don't have time to lighten up and see the humor in the different things of life. Now, I didn't find this necessarily humorous when he told me about it, but I have a pastor friend who a few weeks ago I met with right in here, and he had a meeting in Atlanta just a couple of days earlier, and he arrived there and there wasn't any parking. And he did something that really wasn't very smart, all right? He just pulled up into this no parking space, and he said, I knew it was the wrong thing to do. But I jumped out. I had a piece of paper. I jumped out and I wrote a note. I said, hey, I know this is a no parking zone, but it's an emergency, and I'm only going to be 15 minutes. Well, he went up, did what he had to do, and sure enough, he was back down here in about 15 minutes, and he said this. He said, there was a ticket under his wiper blade there. But also the note was there still. But it was flipped over, and written on it said, take your time. Take your time. That's pretty good, isn't it? So at the time, I didn't think it was too funny, but he said, I'm gonna frame both of these. But my point is this, is that we have to lighten up. I mean, sometimes you have to laugh in order not to cry, right? Proverbs 14:30 says, a relaxed attitude lengthens your life. It'll lengthen your life. It adds years to your life. He's saying lighten up and don't take life so seriously. Now, creatives will tell you this, and people who write. I told you guys I write a message every single Tuesday for the following Sunday. And I write a lot. In fact, I write just about every single day. And I will tell you that everything that's going on in our lives, and it's been crazy these last 2 months, I just have to place on the shelf, all right, and just disconnect. The first thing I have to do is just embrace this intense desire to get away from all of that before I can get started writing a message. I have to lighten the load and lighten my attitude. And you know what? We need to practice that. We do. The first rule of life is don't sweat the small stuff. The second rule is this: it's all small stuff. It is. Why? Because from God's perspective, your biggest problems aren't really that big. They aren't. Now, I'm not trying to diminish anything that any of you are experiencing right now, because I know that some of you, because you've shared with me have been to hell and back, and I understand that, okay? But I know some of you are thinking, hey, if you know all my problems, Brad, you know what? There's no way. You wouldn't be able to lighten up, and I get it, but here's what I'm saying is this. If you'll lighten up, your problems, no matter what they are, won't seem as big. They won't. You need to learn to practice what I call calm concern. Calm concern. Now, that sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Calm concern, you know. Here's the deal. God doesn't call us ever to panic or to pretend or to be any of those things. He doesn't. He calls us to calm concern for peaceful perspective. You ought to write that down. I like that. I made it up. But look, Jesus modeled this for us. All right, listen to this. Follow me here. The first recorded words of Jesus was this. 12 years old. This little guy says, I must be about my Father's business. Now, that's a guy right there, man, he's got his priorities in order. All right, he knows what's important and what's not important. All right, at 12 years old, he already knows where he's headed. I must be about my Father's business. And then, as he died on the cross, what was his last words? It is finished. It is finished. Those are the bookends right there to a successful life. I'm just telling you, all right? Now, I want you to consider this. When Jesus said, it is finished, and he died, had everybody in the whole world been saved? No. Had all the sick people been healed? No. Had everybody been fed? Had all the problems on the face of the earth been solved? No. So how could he say it's finished? Because Jesus had done what was important. Everything the Father told him to do, he'd done it. He had done it. Even Jesus, God in human form, didn't try to meet everybody's needs. He didn't. And I would say to you that it's foolish for you and I to try to do what even God didn't do while he was here on this earth, to try to be all things to all people. All right? When he said it is finished, he had taken care of what was important. What was important? You know, we talk about this all the time, that we have to spend time identifying what's important in our lives. All right? And by the way, when you study Jesus' life, do you know that he was never in a hurry? Can you give me one instance that's recorded where he was in a hurry? No, you can't. He was calm, cool, and collected. Always. Always. When one of his best friends, Lazarus, died, he was about 5-6 miles away, and everybody was pushing him. The pressures of life came in on him, and everybody was saying, "Hey, you need to get there. Get in a hurry, because he's dying. He's in trouble, and he needs you." But Jesus took 3 days to get there. Now, to put that in perspective, all right, the average person, the mode of transportation, by the way, was walking. Okay? Now, the average person could walk probably 20 miles a day, depending on the terrain. Some could walk more, some less. But Jesus, he's 5 miles away. Why do you think he wasn't in a hurry to get there? He could have been there in a couple hours maybe, Why wasn't he in a hurry? Well, it was because he saw an opportunity, and he had a plan. You see, he didn't want to just heal a sick man. He wanted to bring a sick man back to life. He wanted to raise a dead man. That's what he wanted to do, because he was about his Father's business. He had a bigger, better agenda, a miracle in mind. All right? And the tyranny of the urgent was never a part of his agenda here on this earth. Never. Never. Proverbs 17:22 says this: being cheerful keeps you healthy. It's a slow death to be gloomy all the time. You know this, and you know what? Medical research confirms this. There are positive chemical changes in your brain when you laugh, when you embrace humor, when you have a good time. I mean, God designed your body in a way when you laugh, it produces endorphins that increase your immunity. And also, those same endorphins are natural painkillers. They are. And they also simultaneously reduce stress hormones like cortisol. You know what cortisol is? Cortisol is why I have a big belly, probably. I mean, that's where it lands. It produces fat cells. It does. But there's some positive benefits to laughing. There is. So Dr. Rutledge is in the house tonight, and we're going to laugh at some dad jokes. All right? Yeah, look. See, you're already laughing. You're already lighting it up, man. Yeah, you are. So this is what I want you to do. If you're able, look, stand up and turn to the person next to you or behind you and say, hey, this is going to be good. It's going to be funny. So do that right quick, all right? Everybody, stand up if you're capable and say, this is going to be funny, all right? All right. All right, are you guys ready? All right, this first one everybody should know, all right? Why do cows wear bells? Their horns don't work. Now, I'm not trying to be morbid with this one, okay? But when you die, which part of your body dies last? It's your pupils. They dilate. I ordered a chicken and an egg online, and I'll let you know next week which comes first. Y'all ever heard any of these? Oh, good. Great. All right, what's the difference between a crocodile and an alligator? One you'll see later and the other you'll meet after a while. All right, what do you call a strawberry that's sad? Come on, y'all know this one. A blueberry. Yeah. So, how many of you remember church bulletins? And I'm going to give you, yeah. So, this is why we don't do church bulletins anymore. I want to read you a couple of bloopers. And these were real bulletin announcements. They were written in a bulletin and circulated. All right. At the evening service, the sermon topic will be, what is hell? Come early and listen to the choir practice. How many of you know what the Daniel fast is? Yeah, that's a fad. It started about 20 years ago. It was never meant to be a fad, but it became one. It became a weight loss diet is what it became. It was never meant to be that. But here's a real bulletin announcement. In keeping with our church's Daniel fast, a bean supper will be held after the service tonight, and music will follow. The low self-esteem support group will meet next Thursday at 7 p.m. Please use the back door. How many of you laugh at church signs when you go by them sometime? Some of them are kind of ridiculous, right? I actually saw this one, okay? Don't let worry kill you. Let the church help. That was pretty bad right there. Okay, how about one more? All right, one more, all right? All right, why don't light bulbs hold grudges? Because they know it's better to lighten up. Pun intended. Yeah. All right. That's good. Hey, that one was courtesy of Christina Pittman. So the great theologian in our church, she brought part of the message to me tonight. So, yeah, good deal. God says, if you want to make time for the important things in life, you've got to prioritize. But he also tells us we have to lighten our attitude too. We do. We've got to learn to see the humor in life. The Bible teaches that life is meant to be enjoyed. Really, it does. Not just endured, okay? Now, some of you as parents, you know what you say some days, I'm going to look back and laugh on what you're doing, son, all right? Well, why wait? Go ahead and laugh now. I mean, really, lighten the load. It'll make the problem easier. Seriously. And, let me let you in on something. Look, the work is never, ever, ever going to be done. It's just not. It's called life. Being a parent is never going to quit happening. It just isn't. You're always going to be a spouse. You're always going to be a brother, a sister, okay, or a friend, all right? But you have to lighten up. We have to all learn to lighten up now, all right? If you have to find time in the middle of all the calamity of life, all the problems and your work to make time for the things that are important. And some of the important things in life are just simply enjoying the people that God has placed around you, the gifts that God's given you in family and friendships and in your church family, and you've got to laugh together. We all need to laugh more. Does that make sense? Does it? I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. I'm going to play with the kids when things settle down. All right? Probably the phrase that I hear most is when things settle down. When things settle down, I'm going to do this. Well, here's a little secret. They're not going to settle down. They just aren't. It's called life. So if you're out there using that as an excuse, when things settle down, I'm going to start reading my Bible every day. You know what? You're not going to do it. It's never going to happen, all right? You've got to learn to read your Bible when things are unsettled. If you're saying, hey, I'm going to play with the kids, when things settle down, I'm going to spend more time with them. It's not going to happen. They'll be grown and gone. They will. I told Haley when Charlie turned 12 years old in February, I said, you got her for 6 more years. And that was like a reality check. She's 12 years old. You got her for 6 more years, and that's it. She's gone, all right? You got to learn to spend time with your kids now when things are unsettled. Same's true with your marriage, okay? If you wait till things settle down to work on your marriage, okay, it might die on the vine. And what I'm saying is this, is that we have to learn to enjoy life in all circumstances, perfect and imperfect. And this takes an attitude shift. It does. It takes a different mindset. If you wait until all your work's done to start enjoying the people around you, it's not going to happen. It's just not. We need to laugh more. Look, in God's value system, relationships are more important than accomplishments. Always. Always, all right? Do you need to lighten up? Do you need to lighten up your attitude a little bit? Are you making time for what's important? All right? Has your attitude caused divide up here? Has it caused a disconnect between here and here? All right? Are you taking time for the most important people around you? Are you taking time for God? Are you? Your attitude maybe unknowingly, maybe some of you right now just realize, hey, I'm off a little bit. I'm off a little. Well, I want to give you real quickly 5 attitude boosters, if you will, boosters, 5 attitude boosters. Now, your attitude, it's often an outward expression of an inward condition of your heart. I don't know if you realize this or not, but Proverbs tells us this about our hearts. In chapter 4, verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. A lighter attitude begins with a healthier heart, and that's why we must guard it. Calm concern requires something much more than just simply trying harder, all right? It's all about allowing God to transform what's happening inside, what's happening here between your ears and what's happening here in your heart, all right? The first attitude booster is this: lighten my expectations. Lighten my expectations. One of the biggest traps we fall into is unrealistic expectations of yourself and others. It is. This is one of the reasons this is true is because of what I mentioned on Father's Day. These, you may want to write these down again. I don't know, but we fall into the trap of having unclear values, unrealistic expectations, and unsustained energy. All right? Those are the three values, or barriers, I should say, that prevent you from finding time to do the most important things, and they also shape your attitude. All right? Defining what is important in your life is of the utmost importance. It just is. The things that aren't important, those are the things that are wearing you out every day. Those are the things that are draining you of your energy. And your attitude will either be shaped by your priorities or they'll be shaped by pressures in your life. If they're shaped by your pressures, you know what? You probably have a pessimistic attitude and a poor outlook on life. But if you have your priorities in line and you're living with what's important in mind, you're probably going to have a good attitude, all right? And you're going to be upbeat. You are. I said last week, one of the greatest things about being a believer is that it really simplifies life. It brings clarity. The objectives are crystal clear. If you'll open this up and look at it, it is. All right? And if you want a change in your attitude, if you need a change in your attitude, even a slight adjustment, which is really a change in your life, is what that means. You have to define what's important in your life. You do. Paul gives us the clue to what that is. All right? It says in 2 Corinthians 4:18, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary and what is unseen is eternal. Talk about clarity. That's pretty clear, isn't it? It is. This type of clarity causes a shift because you know what? It clarifies your expectations. It clarifies your expectations as a believer. You look here, if you just read the New Testament only, if you just read the book of John, all right, what's important will come into focus, I guarantee you. Because you know what? We understand what's important in life. The next booster is this. Lighten my grip. Lighten my grip. Leaders, I want you to listen to me here, but we have to learn to trust God instead of trying to control everything. Listen to me. Don't micromanage what belongs to God. Faithfulness means guiding. It means equipping. And it means trusting God. Not controlling every outcome. All right? Well, it's the same with our kids at home. Okay? Yeah, they need guidance and they need equipping. And then you have to trust God with them. Right? Many of you know this as you turn your kids loose into this world. You do. The Bible teaches us to do our part diligently, yet leave room for God to work and work in people's hearts and work in their lives. That is so true here at the church. I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to be micromanaged in anything. Micromanagement is not leadership. But this is what Paul has to say about loosening your grip. And he uses a farming analogy, which I love this. He says, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. God is the one who determines our paths. All right? So if you're going to grow in this area, we're going to have to learn to let go and let God. That's just the bottom line. Those of us in recovery understand that. We do. Because control, you run across a micromanager, control reflects fear. Micromanagers are some of the most fearful people in the world. They just are. Trust reflects faith in God. I'm going to trust God because He knows best. He knows best. I've done my part. Now I'm going to let Him do His part. The third booster is this. Lighten my load. Lighten my load. This points to the fact that every single one of us needs to clarify what's important in our life. Otherwise, you're going to continue to get pushed around by the pressures of life. You just are. So many of us are involved in so much that really doesn't amount to a hill of beans. It doesn't. And it's taking precious time and energy away from our relationship with God, getting to know God the Father who knows everything about us, okay? And our church family, our families at home, and the most important things in life. All right, Jesus has an antidote for this. Did you know that? He has an antidote for just about everything. No, he has an antidote for everything. All right? Look at Matthew 11, verse 28 and 30. This is one of my most favorite verses in our passages in the Bible. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That's a free, unopened gift for a lot of us. Every time I read this, I look at this and I say, who would turn that down? Yet many have read this and we've done nothing with it. We haven't. Here's a free gift of release, and recovery, and it's unopened. And when you trust the Lord, when you hand those things over to God and trust him completely with your worries, your anxieties, and your burdens, you're going to find that he is extremely capable. And he does a much better job than you and I can do. That has been the case every single time. Yes, it is scary. Yes, it is. But if you will let go, you will find out that he is God. He is God. And he will lighten the load. The next booster is lighten my words. And I think this is so important. It's so important for me, is that we need to choose encouragement over criticism. Our human nature is to be critical with everything and everybody. But Paul writes this, and I love this passage because it's an indication from Paul, not just James, as to where wisdom comes from. It says in Colossians 4:6, "Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everybody." Now that's true wisdom. True wisdom comes from and is directly linked to being encouraging and being gracious to others. Look, I know everybody in here doesn't like everybody. It'd be crazy to think that we could like everybody. I mean, we're called to love everyone, and I believe we do. But you know what? We need to put up some extra grace for each other around here. We do. Not just to, what am I trying to say? Not just to endure somebody, but no, get to know them and get to understand why they think the way they do. All right? So being wise is directly tied to having a good attitude, especially toward others. And if we have that right attitude, we'll speak to them encouragingly. We will. We won't be harsh with our words and our tones. All right, let's love one another. Let's be gracious. Let's be sure that we are seasoned our words with salt so that people will listen. All right? The last one is this. I need to lighten my focus. I need to lighten my focus. And again, I'm pointing to giving your time to what's most important in your life. When you lighten your focus, it lightens your attitude. When you know what's important to you, man, you're on mission, just like Jesus. Just like Jesus, all right? You keep your eyes on Jesus rather than your circumstances. Circumstances are going to change more than likely. They just are, okay? But whatever you're focused on, that's where you're headed in life. Do you realize that? I mean, whatever you're thinking about, whatever's been at the forefront of your mind for the last 30 days, that's the direction you're going. It is. Simultaneously, I have been on staff at 2 different churches at one time. That's what simultaneously means. I think I needed that myself, all right? So I was a Celebrate Recovery National Director at Saddleback Church. for many, many years, a church that has many campuses on 5 different continents. At that time, more than 80 offices in 80 different countries. In my previous church, I was the pastor of many things. It seemed like the 23 years I was there, my job title changed every single year. It did. But I was Renee and I started the first Celebrate Recovery in the state of Georgia. Both of those churches, they started small. Your lack of a positive attitude, it started small. But it's wrecking your relationships. It's wrecking your life. And whether you realize it or not, your relationships are some of the most important things in your life. They ought to be at the top of that list. It started small. The fear started small. The insecurities started small. The bitterness and unforgiveness started small. You can choose what you focus on. You can choose what you think. Paul tells us this in 2 Corinthians 10:5. He says, we take every thought captive to obey Christ, to obey Jesus. Your thoughts directly shape your attitude, and both of these steer the direction of your life. Is your attitude today, is it taking you where you want to go in this life? Is it? And I will say this, if you're not constantly mindful concerning your thought life, your attitude and your perspective will end up in the ditch. And your attitude will affect every single aspect of your life. Church family, we all have to lighten up. We do. And we have to center up on what's important. I'm going to share this verse with you, and I'll close out. These are Jesus' words. What do we center up on? How do we straighten our attitude out? He says in Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you.